English language teaching under the covers.
Hello and welcome again to English Language Teachers Under the Covers, another teacher interview. Today we are interviewing the wonderful, the beautiful Fanny teacher, which is the other half of TeamTeacherChina or TeamTeacher, below or up there or wherever.
Yeah, I'm pointing, but I'm just thinking it's going to be
have
different.
the esteemed, respectable, and all-powerful Rich, ProfesorRich as well. Hello.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. YouTube.com/ProfesorRich. Sorry, this one's about Fanny, right?
Yeah, no, you can get it in it as much as you can.
No. You go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, YouTube.com/ProfesorRich. That's also attached to my PayPal if you want to make a random donation.
That's, no Bitcoin address there?
£3,000, whatever. Yeah, Bitcoin address is capital E76.
And remember, for TeamTeacher, we've got multiple different channels: TeamTeacherChina, TeamTeacher English, TeamTeacher Baby. TeamTeacherChina has just released one of Fanny's kindergarten classes, which we'll talk a little bit about today, that you can view in full there. But first, let's get started. And Fanny, do you want to kind of go into a little bit of your background from where you started with teaching and how that progressed and to the point you're at now?
All right. So my journey to become a teacher isn't something that I had set out to do. I was originally coming from a marketing, event planning, business background. And just one day I decided that I didn't want to sit behind a desk anymore and just talk to people on the phone or through emails. And I wanted more interaction with people. Also, I wanted to travel, which I think is a lot of reasons why a lot of teachers become teachers, ESL teachers especially. And that was one of my biggest motivation, is just to move and go somewhere. So coming from an English-speaking country in North America, the best way was to become an ESL teacher and be able to teach overseas. So I signed up for a TESOL class that took place for a couple of months, and I learned a lot of things, and I really, really enjoyed it. The teachers were great. And once I completed that, I had two options: whether to stay in Canada and do the ESL teacher route. But I keep hearing how it was just not very easy to find a full-time position. You always start off part-time, and that wasn't my goal. And I wanted to travel. I didn't want to stay in Vancouver anymore. So I started to look for.
What was the TESOL? Was it a cert TESOL? Because it was the accredited one, because in Canada you have to be accredited. Yeah. When I wanted to teach in Canada, I had to have the CELTA. I couldn't just have any old plain piece of paper. Where you get these online certificates.
This one was actually in class. So I spent months and hours in class where you actually do the work and you do a practicum with it. So once you do the class, you pass it and you do your practicum. You can basically apply for the Canadian TESOL, I guess, a CESOL. And with that certification, you're able to teach in Canada legally as a ESL teacher. I actually haven't finished that because the amount of time that I was teaching wasn't enough for me to apply for CESOL before I left. But I did, the school that I went to get my TESOL from, they actually had substitute positions. So I actually signed up for it and was able to teach several classes in, I believe, a month, several classes to other ESL teacher students. And it was a great experience, in which just kind of cement the fact that, this is what I want to do.
Okay. And then after Canada, you were saying?
So I was searching for a place where I could teach overseas, and I've been watching a lot of South Korean drama, K-drama, and it's just that was a really big place to go to, and I'm like, let's just immerse myself into K-drama and go to South Korea and teach there. but the experience was not what I expected. It was what the K-drama doesn't tell you is how hardworking South Koreans are and how much are expected from them from their jobs. I worked as an ESL teacher, as a foreign teacher, and there are a lot of like local teachers there as well. And the amount of work that they put in compared to me is not the same. They definitely work their butts off. They worked so hard, even though I felt like I worked really, really hard too. But they worked until they just burned out, and a lot of them actually just quit because they worked that hard. But yeah, when I first went to South Korea, I went with Neil. We went there together as a couple teacher, and we were placed in the same Hagwon, which is a private after-school English academy versus a public school. For public schools, you're not really there. You can't really go as a couple. You have to go as an individual. So because we're going together, we decided we'll take the private Hagwon route instead. And I think me being a female, immediately I got placed into a lot of the younger kids' classes. And previous to being in South Korea, I hadn't taught young kids before. Sure, I've done like summer camps and had nieces and nephews to play with, but not actually teaching them. I think it's just that because I'm female, I automatically get the younger kids. And it was quite an experience, and I actually really enjoyed it. I learned a lot with, being in class more than in like going through the classes, like courses. Yeah.
What would you say is like the difference? So you did all that practicum in Canada, and the way that they were preparing you for teaching English, and then boom, you're in Korea, you're in a Hagwon, you're doing you've got quite a workload, and you're doing with younger kids. So how was that different? And what did you have to do differently?
With the school in Canada, when I was teaching adults, I was actually teaching new immigrants, and we were just given a subject. So the entire course planning was up to us. Whatever I wanted to do, like introducing the language, introducing grammar, doing small activities within the group. It was easily transferable from what I've learned from the TESOL course into being a substitute teacher or teaching English in Canada, because they were adults. So a lot of them actually already comprehend some of the English. They weren't, I wouldn't say they were beginners. They were more intermediate, definitely not beyond that, but they understood and they were willing to learn. And they were interested and they wanted to be there because they paid for it. Whereas when I was in South Korea, a lot of the children, they don't really have a choice that they had to be at the academy. And the classes, although were smaller than what you would normally see at a public school, it is different. And because their English level is so much lower, I do have to adjust my teaching using smaller sentences, easier words, or lots of repetition. Yeah, the language was big, using games, more suitable for younger kids versus adults. Definitely there wasn't a lot of group activities because it was a lot harder to control that, and they just don't comprehend the instructions if it gets more complicated than like 5 words.
Yeah, it's a weird thing that a lot of the courses that I see for new teachers for teaching English, they are often geared with this, I feel like, an imaginary class in mind of kind of adults or young adults at a intermediate level. And yet most of the jobs that I've come across or I see posted or that I've done is often dealing less with adults, more with younger children, more with very little or low level of English. And that's outside of the big British Council and international house chains sort of thing.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, the British Council definitely is like heavily focused on kids now. I mean, I think that is just I think it's the way that the market's gone, to be honest. And I think that, you know, if you go back to when these courses had their inception, you know, the CELTA and the Trinity course and all the rest of it, they were looking at, you know, a kind of mainly an adult market and kind of European centric. This is where all of the writers of these courses, all of the people who influence the methodologies that they teach, had experiences in the European market mainly. And I think it's kind of still, yeah, it's still a bit focused on that. And I think that's a really good point. It's kind of funny that in order to teach, in order to get a young learner specific certificate, you're supposed to kind of jump through the initial certificate first, and then you get like an extension.
Yeah, you do the CELTA and then you do the CELTA for kids. I can't remember what
that's
it's
right,
called.
or Trinity and then the TILEC. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that's, I mean, I don't want to say it's backwards. I mean, for me, teaching adults was definitely the way in, and kids was something that I kind of moved on to. I don't think I ever would have gone into English language teaching and gone like, yeah, let's teach some kids. You know, I don't think that would have been an appealing thing for me. But now I love teaching kids and I love teaching teens and I love teaching young learners. So for me, it was an in. Maybe that's the psychology of it. Maybe there's a lot of teachers who are like that. But yeah, I think there certainly should be an option to just begin day one. You know, CELTA Kids Edition. Well, it wouldn't be CELTA, would it be CELT YL? Right?
Yeah.
It should be a possibility, I think.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's a weird situation because I kind of feel like, well, there's lots of people that go into teaching kids and then go into teaching adults, and I would say it can almost be easier teaching kids to begin with if you're kind of like an outgoing entertainer, you know, performer, you know, like even, you know, with like a drama background or something, an acting background or something like that, because energy is very important. So that might be an easy way for someone that's kind of, you know, a bit younger and I think graduate into adults. But the idea, I did like you, the adult route first before going to children, and I felt that really helped me with the whole structuring and kind of thinking of, you know, the actual teaching aspects. No, that's not a very good way of putting it, but the thinking of the whole methodology behind it, and then going into kids and bringing that energy in and mixing it up. But I can see both sides as, you know, having the positive and negatives of where you first join it.
I think there is a thing that if you have some natural, or let's say you've built up an experience of kids before you come to teaching, you know, because actually my experience with kids before I came to teaching was very minimal, very minimal. Whereas now, you know, I interact with kids outside of teaching as well. You know, like if I see a kid, you know, in the supermarket and they kind of look at me, then I might make a face or do something, you know, wave at them or something, right? Whereas previously I would have been like, oh, it's a kid, you know, what are you doing? Leave me alone, right? But I feel like there's people who already were having interactions with kids, or, you know, had this understanding of where kids are as well. Yeah, if you're fresh, if you're kind of going fresh into teaching, then you know, you do have an ability to, you know, you can kind of look at little Jimmy or whatever and have more of an understanding of why he's kind of, you know, pulling a face and throwing his pencil around or whatever. Whereas at the beginning, I wouldn't have had a clue about that. So there's a big difference there in how you begin.
No, for sure. I think when I first started teaching, I was very strict. Because I was teaching adults before, so I wasn't really fun. And then
fun with the adults or with
the kids.
Okay.
The kids. I wasn't really fun with the kids because I could chat with adults and no problem, but chatting to kids is completely different, right?
Yeah, I mean that was one of the things that I wanted you, what I was hoping you to talk about today, because I was more fun, definitely more of a fun character. in the class, whereas you were more disciplinarian. So
yeah, I'm a strict teacher. But then I actually had one of the teachers, Rami, I don't know if you remember, she was my co-teacher. She told me that the way to help me teach younger kids was to be a bit nicer to them. She told me to be nicer, and I was like, oh, maybe that's the way. Like, I think a lot of kids, when they look to, I don't know if it's the same with male teachers, but for female teachers, they're kind of still looking a bit like nurturing. So if I'm like nicer to the kids, I offer them hugs, because before I wouldn't let any kids touch me. I'm like, no hugs, stay away from me. Like, I'm not your friend, don't come to me. But I started to kind of have to change my attitude in order for them to begin to like me more. I had to make myself more likable. And I changed my kind of mindset that I'm not really there to please them. I'm there to do my job, and they have to work hard to make me like them. So, and that's why I kind of went more of a strict route. I'm like, if you're good and you show that you're good, I'll be really nice to you. But if you're not, I've yelled at kids before.
And how did that work out?
Yeah, they get scared of me. They get scared when I yell. I can see it in their eyes and their, but on the opposite side, when I'm really, really nice and fun, they really enjoyed it too. So, they kind of get, I think maybe it's the extremes that I kind of do with them, that kind of like once I'm like really angry, they can tell, they kind of sit up straighter, pay a little bit more attention, and yeah, just use a bit of psychology, I guess, with them.
Well, you had a really good, what do they call it, like a teacher stare or whatever.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I worked on that.
Like they were dealing with their mums or something like that.
Yeah, because the thing is that because I'm Asian, so I come from like, that Asian culture. I know that kids are required to respect their elders. So I kind of played up on that a bit. So I'm like, I am older than you. I'm your elder, so you have to listen to me. There's no other reasons. It's just because I'm older than you, you have to listen to me. And I kind of played up to that, being that you have to respect me. And that's it. And I think they kind of see me as that. And also because that I'm Asian, and they see me as, like their parents. Sometimes I might look like their parents.
I definitely think that having like cultural inside information, or just cultural experience with a culture, definitely helps you deal with that specific culture, right? In my experience, dealing with Spanish kids was very different than dealing with Vietnamese kids. Certainly it was a question of, the more you kind of learn about the culture, and the more you learn about the kind of feelings that they have, about the things that are critical to them in their life, and the feelings they have about teachers, and the feelings they have about adults, and all this kind of stuff, and how their parents are with them as well, right? Like, I don't know much about Korean parents or Chinese parents, but Vietnamese parents are incredibly strict with their kids, and in fact to the point where often like corporal punishment can be involved. And obviously the British Council not very keen on that. They don't, we don't want to encourage any corporal punishment. So a lot of the kind of, when we were dealing with difficult students and, writing reports and stuff, we always had to consider that, what we're doing could have very serious repercussions for these kids, right? And we wanted to be careful about that. And in fact, we were supposed to report any signs of a child who was having those kind of difficulties at home. Didn't see that much of it, to be honest, but it was definitely going on in some description or another. It's just, I think whatever punishment they used didn't, they said things like they twisted their ears and stuff. It was stuff that didn't leave marks, And then in Japan, it was almost like, I didn't teach kids in Japan. I taught university students, but in Japan, I remember that a lot of the girls had welts on their ankles where they'd been hit with some sort of a stick in school. And it kind of brings it home to you that this idea that, you know, the societies that are very ordered and very polite and very respectful, there's something behind that, which, you know, sometimes isn't the most pleasant thing in the world.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's kind of, there's a cost that is like the hidden cost. Everyone sees the whole front of the politeness, like you say, but then, you know, the cost is all that trauma, and, you know, it's, what do you lose from that? You lose, I mean, for myself, when seen in China and some of the students, there would be more disciplinarian teachers, and I don't mean disciplinarian like Fanny's talking about, where giving them a hard stare and a bit of a cold shoulder, but, you know, like got the cane out and more corporal. That, you know, they're worried about, you know, giving the wrong answer. They're worried about, you know, trying something a bit different, and with something like learning English, it's hugely important that you feel free to kind of explore the language.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that. And yeah, fear of making mistakes, that was a massive thing in Japan. And obviously, if your fear of making mistakes, you know, is above about 10%, whatever that means, then you know, you won't attempt anything new in speaking, will you? And everything will be, you know, I mean, when you're having an oral communication with someone, an oral conversation, you can't be spending your time dissecting everything you're going to say. I think that being self-conscious to some extent is helpful for patching up different areas of your speech, but you know, if you're going to try to construct the whole, you know, even, you know, 10 seconds of what you're going to say ahead in advance, then it really destroys your fluency. And you really see this in Japan. You know, if you ask students a question and there's just this gap of silence while they kind of work through it, you know, it's just silence as well. It's not like they kind of go, they do make a bit of a noise, but yeah, it's just, and it's very long. And then they'll come out with like 3 perfectly formed sentences with vocabulary you wouldn't expect at that level, you know.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, fluency in the real world, fluency is king. So we have to, you know, encourage trying.
Yeah, definitely. You began in Canada with doing the teacher training. So you started with training as a teacher, dealing mostly with adults there, new immigrants. Then from Canada, we're going to Korea, doing a Hagwon, teaching younger students in this, you know, private training center. Then what?
So in South Korea, just to say, I taught younger kids as well, up to teens, so 14-ish age as well. So it's a wide range. And then from there, after about 2 years, I went to China to teach in the public school. So now we've moved from the private academy to a public school with better hours, but way, way bigger classes. So from there, I taught 2 grades. I taught grade 3s and grade 5s. And I also taught private classes after school hours, after school on weekdays, as well as I think 1 on weekend. So with the private school classes, they're usually younger. I've taught 1 class that's grade 3s, and most of the other ones are about kindergarten age. So just before they enter school, 1 or 2 years before they enter school. So one thing about these class sizes, so the private classes are really small. They're about maybe most 6 people, 6 kids, but they're usually from 3 to 5. So with the public school, the classes are class size are well over 50 kids in 1 class, and I teach about 14 of those a week. 17 classes a week. So I don't know what the math is. That's a lot of kids.
And how would you do that?
With that one, definitely there's some planning. So I just use the public school textbook and kind of supplement what they've already learned from their English teachers into my class. So, and just kind of review what they've already learned. So I'm not introducing a lot of new vocabulary. So, because I want them to practice more oral English rather than to learn new things. So so I'll reintroduce the vocabulary that they've learned from their English teacher. We do a lot of games. We do a lot of repetition. With the older grade 5, we do sentences. With the younger grade 3s, we do single vocabulary words and picture matching. And usually at the end of the class, if they've done well, I also reward them with either video, music video, or just a cartoon video, or with the older kids, something just to kind of reward them with the subject that's related to the subject that they're doing.
Well, could you talk a bit about the games that you do?
Yeah, so the games
with the really young kids.
With the really young kids, so with my privates, the young kids, the games that we do, the introductory lessons, like I teach them commands. So to stand up, line up, raise their hands, sit down. So we do it as a game. Teacher says, so I introduce it as teacher says. So I demonstrate in front and they all do it. After a few classes of that, they remember the action and the words. I start to say, what's number 1? And they'll raise their hands and they'll say it. Once they say it, I reward them with a star. So they, with the smaller classes, because there's only 4 or 5 of them, I can individually like draw a star on their name. So everybody has a name tag and I just kind of add up their stars so they know who kind of excels at the end. Kids are already competitive at that age. So, the more stars they have, the happier they are. And they also kind of reinforces them to know that they've done well. It's like my way of telling them, good job. So we do the instructions at the beginning. Then we usually go from a game to a song. And with a lot of these songs, some of them already come with actions, where the ones that don't, I just kind of make them up on the spot and we just do it. And they just copy me. So they look at me, they see the song, and these songs are played. I only have maybe like 5 or 6 songs that I play in the class. So again, repetition, so that by the end of like a month or 2 or the end of the term, they actually know the songs already and they know their actions. So it feels like they've already learned something too.
So these, like, you're talking songs like Baby Shark and that sort of thing, or?
We do Baby Shark. Yeah, those are easy ones. I'll do I'm a Teapot, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, some like nursery rhyme songs that are easy and simple for them. Okay,
so you're getting them to do songs with actions and TPR and stuff like that.
Yeah. So the songs break up the actual lessons, because the actual lessons is when we learn the vocabulary words. They actually, some of the younger classes, they have a book that the parents want me to teach. So I just take the vocabulary from each book and the workbook that they have. We only do maybe 1 or 2 pages each class, because they're just, a lot of them are tracing, coloring, really easy things. And I'm like, it won't take the entire hour and a half that I teach them. So that's why I add in all these songs. And I also show them the text using a PowerPoint. Whatever is on their book is also on the monitor in front of them. So they get to see. And I would demonstrate how to do the activity before they do it. And then I give them time to do it. And I would walk around and I would see if any of them needs help, then I help them. Otherwise, I just walk around just checking on them. And, with the younger kids who like praises, so you always just say, you're doing such a good job, or they really like it. And, you get a bit of a smile. And if I think they're doing an excellent job, I'll just randomly give out stars. And one of the things that I surprise the younger kids classes, the kindergarten classes with, is that sometimes I'll give them 1 star, sometimes I'll give them 3 stars. And when they suddenly just get 3 star, they know that they've done so good, that I'm so pleased with their work, and they get really excited about that.
I was really surprised when I watched some of your classes with the kindergarten, because I had an idea with kindergarten that it would be a lot more, I don't know, like not as like your classes are really, because you have to use the books that the parents provide. That I was surprised at how heavy, you know, that they gave you books and stuff like that to use.
Yeah.
I was surprised at how structured it was, and that, you know, you were doing the tracing and stuff like that. I expected more kind of just
chaos.
More chaos, more games.
Yeah.
You know, like oh, run here and say this word, but you know, in that kind of way, I didn't expect to see so many sitting down and, you know, connecting the vocabulary with the picture and all that sort of thing.
I think in a normal kindergarten class where you have lots and lots of kids, that might be less, like, it would be more running around and playing a lot more games. But because I have so little students, and the parents really kind of gave me a goal, and they're like my clients, so I have to kind of achieve that goal and finish that book within the 3 months that I have, so that I do structure it very, it's very structured. Maybe it's just my style. I like to know when I start, this is what we're going to do, and then the next thing, this is what we're going to do, and then we're going to do the book reading, and then they repeat, and then we do a game, and then we do a song, and then we do the workbook, and then we do another game, we do a song. A lot of these activities it's really quick, because kids don't really have a lot of good, like, long attention span anyways. And but because of the structure, they know what to expect as well. So they're ready.
Did you find, I mean, you probably did, but did you find the conflict between parents, what the parents want their kids to learn and what the kids would like to do? Did you find that challenging, and how did you decide, how did you balance that?
So yeah, definitely the parents want the class to be more academic, whereas I know that they're just kids. They're 4, 5, 6 years old. You know, you can't really expect them to sit there and do all that printing, but it is what the parents wanted. So I kind of try to go, that's why I only do like 1 or 2 pages a day, so that they do that, but they're also going to stand up, and they're also going to dance. And when they actually get off, like, you can tell when they get off their desk and they're able to dance, they love it. They go nuts for it. And, you know, as long as, you know, the parents have, like, you know, that book where they can see that their kids already did something, that satisfies them.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you know, the kids are going to be, I want them to come to class happily, not something that they dread because, oh, I'm going to just be writing and drawing or whatever, sat at my desk all the time. But introducing songs and games makes them more active and engaging, and they would want to look forward to class. Yeah. And I also reward with my kindergarten class, private classes, I give them a candy.
Oh yeah, and you can't do that. You can't do that.
Well, I mean, you can, but it's an interesting one, isn't it? It's definitely frowned upon from some quarters. The derogatory term that's used for that is Pavlovian motivation.
Yeah.
But you can also use that with regards to things like stars as well. Now, personally, I think Pavlovian motivation does have a place, and I think a very useful place at times. You know, I mean, if you're talking about 4-year-olds, then are you really going to, you know, only aim for, you know, internal motivate? Yeah, this 4-year-old's going to come to class and learn English because they want to learn English. I mean,
don't you feel good about being able to put a sentence together? Is that reward enough for you?
Yeah, no.
Well, I think we have it as adults as well, though. You know, like it's just a little bit more subtle. You know, the whole idea of getting the degree. You know, for many people, it's not the piece of paper that shows that they've got all this experience, that they're employable. But for them, it's just kind of like oh, I've done really well.
Yeah, and I think what Fanny said about the competitive nature of people, I mean, there are definitely some movements in sort of ELT methodology at the moment, which are against this kind of thing. They don't. It's we don't want to have a winner and a loser or whatever. But I know, for example, that me personally, I am highly motivated by competitiveness, and actually, it doesn't matter all that much if I win or lose. Obviously, if I win, then I'm a lot happier about it. But whether I win or lose doesn't affect what I do before that, which is if I think it is competitive, then I want to do well, right? So for me, it definitely does have an effect. I mean, even when I was doing my Trinity diploma, right? I had a roommate in Barcelona who was a girl on the course, and we got on pretty well. But we were both like on the cusp of getting a distinction for a lesson practice, right?
Yeah.
And that really pushed me, and it pushed her as well. I could see that she was going for it as well. And on reflection, to be honest, she was better, but it pushed us both, and we both got there. And I think we only got there because of that competitiveness. And so I think that, for me, competitiveness has a role to play. And yeah, okay, sometimes it's okay. You have the activities where everybody wins, or it's not about winning or losing or whatever. But, I think there's a definite place for things where people do win or lose, for the star chart, for the rewards, for the, let's give XYZ a clap because they've really done it, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I do want to mention that with the stars that I give the kids, I always make it even. They don't know it, but I do. I already count them so that there are no outstanding winners, or if this person won this week, I'll make sure the other person wins the next week. So that's something subtle that I do.
What the hell is this?
Yeah, I completely yeah. It's a game. It's, I guess, in a way that to kind of promote fairness, and the fact that I actually did this once without realizing that I should make it fair between all the kids, and the kids actually get upset. And there was a child that actually cried. And from then on, I'm like, you know what? I need to make sure that these kids, at least they win at least once every, like they take turn winning. They don't know that I do it, but it feels good for them to yeah, I won this week. And then they do come back trying harder. And I do notice that. And when I say I give rewards, everybody actually gets a reward at the end, but the person that had the most stars probably get an extra reward. So they're not left empty-handed, because they're kids. They will cry, they will get upset if they didn't get anything out of it. And that's kind of the balance with the young kids, is that they try hard, but sometimes they don't always win, and they don't know that yet. And I don't know if it's a lesson that I want to teach them.
Well, not 4 or 5 years, right? I mean,
I'm like, there's winners and losers. I actually, because that girl that cried, her dad actually tried to tell her that, there are winners, and then you don't always win every time. And I just I felt really bad. That's one of the things, in China, most of the parents and teachers assume that I can't understand Chinese, but I secretly can. So I can hear a lot of the things that they tell me. And it's actually great with the younger kids, so that I can tell when, they know the answer or they don't know the answer, or they're talking about something that they don't think I can understand. But sometimes I kind of let it slip a bit that I heard them, they're saying apple or something. I'm like, oh yeah, this is an apple. And they're like, how does she know? I'm like, and then I would just answer, oh, because I'm a teacher. I know everything. Yeah, with the kids, I'm a bit more fun.
How does that help you? I mean, in Korea, you didn't really know the language, but in China, you did. So did you notice any difference? Does it different style of teaching? How does it help? Does it not help? Does it hinder?
I do find if you know the language, it does help. It helps in that I understand what they're having trouble with. And if certain I don't know, vocabulary or grammar that need more explaining, that they don't really understand, you can see the confusion in their like in their faces sometimes. But sometimes they talk to their classmates more about it. They're like, I don't really get it or whatever. And then I can hear that, and I can, take more time to explain this one aspect to them more. So I find that's helpful, that I know what they're struggling with, and I can work on that more versus like just kind of glazing through it, like going through my lesson plan without stopping to check.
Mm-hmm. But that's funny because it's only if it's secret. Like if someone knows English, but they wouldn't speak up and ask you and say, oh, can you explain that a bit more? But because they don't know that you know Chinese, they ask their friend, you overhear it, and then unprompted, you can elaborate a little bit more. So it's you kind of got like a secret way into their mind. It's not always
secret. Yeah, it's not always secret. They sometimes say it out loud. Oh. They still like ask me the question in Chinese out loud, and even though I deny saying that I know what they're saying, but yeah, they still ask it out loud sometimes because they assume I can't understand. Right? But yeah, I definitely think it's helpful for me as a teacher to know what area needs more explaining or
Yeah, I mean, I know it's definitely a hot potato, but I mean, to be honest, I like to stay closer to the fence on a lot of things. I don't want to go too extreme either way, but on learning, on using L1 in the classroom, I'm probably more towards the it's good when you know how to use it than a lot of teachers. And whether that's just your comprehension of understanding what they're saying, and they say, how do I say in English, right? And you can actually understand that. But also, I even think occasionally it can be useful for the teacher to fire something back as well. I mean, you have a lesson plan, you have a main lesson aim, and maybe someone asks a question, and one of the options you have as a teacher when you don't want to get derailed is to say, oh, don't worry about that. We're doing something else now, or this is more important, or you don't need to do that right now. But if you know the language, you can just fire it back. They say, oh, what's this mean, teacher? And you're like, oh, I've only got 10 minutes and I've got 12 minutes of material left. And this kid in the corner is asking me a question. And you can just say, oh, that's rebobinar, boom, and then move on. And that, honestly, I think that's a better answer than saying, we haven't got time for that, or that's not important for you right now. Yeah. So, I do think having the L1 of your students is an advantage.
It's great for management. I think a lot of what we're doing is coming down to management and balance of so many different things. With this whole expectation with the parents, with the book, but also trying to balance making the kids, having the kids learn but have fun, and trying to balance your time as well, because you only have a certain amount of time and you want to use that effectively. That's a major component of teaching. So we're coming towards the end, and the one last question that I wanted to drop on Fanny was basically, as an experienced teacher now, what would you say was one of the most important steps for you to becoming the teacher you are today? Just whatever comes to mind.
I think being dropped in with no preparation is probably one of the biggest lesson and biggest experience that I get. You go in and say, here's a book, go teach. You have 20 minutes. I was like, what? Is there you don't even have time to write down a lesson plan. And I like to prep everything before I go in. So thinking on your feet is a major, major lesson. And you just kind of have to, do something. Actually, that relates to what I do today as well. I often get commands we're going to do a live stream in 10 minutes. You're going to have to talk about this. And there's no script. So I'm just going to say whatever comes to my mind. But yeah, that's probably the biggest lesson in life, even.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting one. I think definitely it's something that couldn't go horribly wrong. I mean, I had some very negative, because I had some similar experiences to that, and I had some very negative experiences. We talked about this previously, that I'd actually been massively put off teaching kids, because I went into a situation not prepared by an institution that didn't prepare me properly with children, and it was really, you know, it was a massive stress, you know, and it was like I was prepared to give up that job. I basically said to them, I'm not going to do that again. And if they come back and say, well, you have to, then I was prepared to just go, well, no, I'm not, because I was so kind of by it, right? But, you know, alternatively, the other side of it is that we do have to take risks as teachers, right? So if you have that experience and it works out, then it's like, wow, you know, then that's a great experience to have, because then you've got that confidence that, you know, I can go into these unknowns and I can give it a shot.
Yeah, it's kind of like any aspect of your life. If it's something that you kind of aren't confident in or weak, and if you kind of, you know, focus on that for a bit, you know, if you have something that you're really comfortable with, to go outside of that comfort zone every now and again and kind of push your boundaries and see how well you do, because, you know, maybe the very first year, if you were dropped in it, Fanny, you would have sunk, but with that experience, you know, the second year it worked out for you, and, you know, just, you know, try it every now and again, you know, that yearly taste test. Oh, do I like olives this year? No, try them again.
Have I done it yet?
Okay, we'll wrap it up here because we're limited on time. But one more plug, Rich.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, I think it'd be great to have Fanny on again sometime, and hopefully that will happen. You know, busy people, difficult, isn't it? For you busy people,
ones, right?
I've got loads of time. Of course, YouTube.com ProfesorRich, totally useless for teachers, other than you'll just see me do some random nonsense. But if you happen to be a student watching this thing, and who knows, we have no idea what the audience for this might be. Could be students, could be random admirers. You know, brilliant. Please like, share, subscribe. ELT under the covers, and it's been fun. Over to you guys.
Thank you. So, TeamTeacher, multiple channels. We've got TeamTeacherChina, TeamTeacher Baby, TeamTeacher English, TeamTeacher China. Lots of information about China, but also our teaching videos. And TeamTeacher Baby is about parenting and teaching with parenting, and TeamTeacher English is basically for younger kids, independent lessons for them to do, or that teachers can assign as homework. Just search for them all together as one word on YouTube. You'll find them, and you'll find the same on social media accounts. And we also have our website, TeamTeacherChina.com, where you've got lots of free materials to download and use. But it's Fanny's interview, so I'm going to let her give the last words and give the plugs for us to subscribe to our ELT, English Language Under the Covers channel. Fanny, go ahead.
All right, so if you want in-depth interviews or just to see these two lovely faces all the time, definitely check out ELT Under the Covers. Subscribe, share, follow, everything. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Well, thank you very much for coming. See you later, guys.